It's Treacherous Trap Tuesday. This is DMG, and we're going to be talking about the giant boulder trap. Come on, Indiana Jones, you know you wanna. Of course, if you're enjoying these videos, consider supporting me on Patreon, help financially keep this channel going, and create the game 7D system. Of course, if you want to receive notifications, click the bell next to the subscribe button. So this trap, we originally talked about in Dungeon Creation Live 3, Rom Tiddle's Maze. That was a crazy one. I thought we would just go into it here if you have not seen that video, or as a recap. So the way that this trap was obfuscated was it's basically part of the passage, and at the beginning of the passageway there's a big hole in the ceiling, and you can see the boulder up in the ceiling. So it's not terribly well obfuscated. However, as you walk down the corridor, further down the corridor is the trigger. There isn't really a lure other than the fact that this is the only passageway into the place. About 3/4 of the way down the passageway is the trigger, and the trigger is the entire floor space, so you can't really jump over it. You're going to step on it, and that is going to release the boulder. Your containment is you're contained within this passageway, and you're not actually going to be able to run quick enough to outpace this giant rolling rock. The passageway is at an angle, so it'll be sloping down, because at the end of the passageway is the collection point for the boulder, which basically allows it to roll back through, and it gets reset back into the trap mechanism. The effect is basically to crush anyone who's in the corridor. So this is a la Indiana Jones. You got to run down the corridor, and you're going to try and outpace this boulder. So this is all a question of speed. If people are hanging around trying to figure out the trigger mechanism, whatever, they've already run out of time. So the disposal in that case was a person or someone who was patrolling the dungeon, cleaning up afterwards. So there is actually a patrol that patrols the dungeon, and its job is to dispose of the enemies that have come into this underground labyrinth. Now, the trap can adapt if you want to add on extra bits. So where the boulder rolls through the hole at the end, it's kind of almost like a pinball machine where the ball pops back out and can then be fired with a spring, and you can basically put it down different corridors if you like. So you can have multitude of corridors that are all affected by the same boulder trap, and it can reset. You could have, say, 5 or 6 different corridors, and it randomly resets to different corridors, and each corridor has a trigger. So you can have all these boulders rolling all over the show. And finally, of course, the reset, the boulder goes through, and there is a passageway which takes it back, and there's like a lift mechanism that loads it back into the rolling mechanism. It goes underneath the corridor where it gets taken back again on the slope that's downwards. So the the giant rock rolls down this to the end where there is a gear mechanism that brings it back up to where it loads. Of course, if you're using some kind of adaptation, it could then change into a different corridor and load into a completely different one where there's a new trigger. So if this is just, there's a corridor that only goes in one direction, it doesn't branch off, you can then have it appear in different corridors. This trap is particularly useful for creating a sense of urgency, driving the characters into the labyrinth or the dungeon or whatever it is you're using. Because once the boulder's rolling towards them, there's no way for them to get out of the way. They have to go as fast as they can down the corridor. So you can have some other things waiting for them there. They're forced into a room, they're forced into another corridor. There's a variety of different things you can tag onto this trap that really help with the point of no return. Once the characters are in the dungeon, this basically forces them deeper into it, and then they have to then explore what else you have in store for them. So if you like this video, like button, join me next week for Treacherous Trap Tuesday.